Welcome back, viewers. This is Surviving the Storm, Episode 2. We're going to cover creature comforts and primarily limited solar power. When the power goes out at your house, a lot of the reason you don't have heat is not because you don't have gas or gas pressure. It's because you don't have electricity to turn on your furnace. The reason you don't have internet isn't because the internet doesn't come to your house. It's because you can't power your internet connection to give yourself Wi-Fi. So this is a practical, not too expensive as far as solar power goes, a how-to video. First off, my solar system, I've been putting stuff together for a long time. I've gone through a lot of parts and pieces. I've spent a lot of money in the wrong spot. And now I'm at a point where I'm quite comfortable with my system. As I tally up what I spent, it was about a total of $2,600 all in, minus the $4,000 to $6,000 worth of mistakes I should not have bought. So let's talk about that. The fan noise you hear is that all of the lighting I'm using is currently being powered right here. I've got 2 solar panels outside I will show you shortly. This charge controller is an MPPT charge controller, and there's a reason I went with EP-Ever. That's just a 40 amp hour charge controller. And if we look at the display, I have 13.6, 13.5 volts in the battery. It's currently dropped due to the inverter going on, but let's bring this all the way around. Right now I have 29 to 30 volts of solar. It's coming in at 3 to 5 amps, and because this is MPPT, it converts the solar, it'll convert the higher voltage into higher amperage, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I've got about 3.5 amps. Currently I've made 266 kilowatts with this inverter. My battery is topped off at 13.5, 13.6. It's actually at 13.8, but I'm drawing quite a bit of power, and I'll show you that in a minute. And the solar is now giving me between 6 and 8 amps. It's kind of fluctuating because all the power I'm using is actually not coming out of my battery. It's coming directly from the sun at this point. This is a 500 watt pure sine wave inverter, and I think I paid $300 for this. It was a little less than $300 for this charge controller, and each of my panels was $285. So when you purchase these one at a time, and I did start with only a single panel and this charge controller, when you break it down to $300 a purchase, it makes it obtainable. This battery, on the other hand, when it comes to storage, that's expensive. But before we get into that, let's talk about why the fan is going off on this and I'm using so much power. For creature comforts, I've got lights. The last time I had a power outage down here, I didn't even know. My kid come down, told me about a half hour after. You'll have to pardon the mess of my bench. It gets used a lot. So I'm running a computer. This is old school HP. It's a bit of a power pig. And we've got the old Lethal Weapon going. So, you know, when the storm hits and the lights are out and life sucks, let's have some popcorn and watch a movie. It's really not that bad. That same solar power runs my communication, which is currently one radio here, and I also have a high frequency radio I bring down. And you can see where I've got two coaxes coming in. And this is an earth ground wire. These are from my old battery bank. They're not connected to anything anymore. It's just from here to outside. You can tell I've got no shortage of plugs. I keep all of my radios charged. I really don't have power problems, and it cost me $2,500 to do that. So, where did I start? Well, I started with a very bad battery, and I don't even have the other charge controller here. It's quite horrible, but I'll show you that it's outside. This charge controller is a PWM, and this charge controller is a PWM. And the reason you do not want to spend your money on these for a home backup system is they'll take your higher voltage and dissipate it into heat and only send through the amps. So and the amps is what you want. So if your solar panel is giving you 5 amps and 60 volts, these are going to give you 5 amps at 13 volts. Whereas this charge controller is actually going to take your 60 volts and 5 amps, and it's going to give you about 25 amps at 12 volts. And that's why you want the more efficient, slightly more expensive. I think this one here was about $25 or something on Amazon. So there's 25 bucks I spent and didn't have to. Now this one I did not waste my money on because it came with a folding solar panel advertised to be 120 watts, and it is, but there's the efficiency loss, so what you actually get from it is about 100 watts. When it comes to power inverters, this one is a pure sine wave. And this one here, my older one, is a pure sine wave. I've used this one for years, and I just left it turned on and running. It's a pure sine wave. The reason you want pure sine wave as opposed to a digital sine wave or a modified sine wave is electronics like your computer, TV screens, things like that. They really don't like modified or digital, and you can harm the circuitry within there, and then you don't have it anymore. So this is the battery I did wind up going with. It's a 12 volt LiPo 4 battery. If you're gonna get started in on solar, the number one purchase I would make first would be this battery. It's 320 amp hours at 12 volts, and it comes with the charger. Now, unfortunately for me, things showed up a little broken. It still functions properly, but the charger is well, it broke, and I don't care. I'm not sending it back. I never purchased it for this. However, if you haven't bought a charge controller yet, and you don't have 2 solar panels yet, you just have the funding to get this battery and a reasonable 500 watt power inverter that's pure sine wave. This is your standard Amazon special, and so is this one. This is only 300 watts. It wasn't quite strong enough, but it did handle my needs a long time. If you get the 500 watt, you're going to be much better off. You can plug this charger right into your battery and into your grid while you have grid, and it's going to give you 7 amps of charge power and keep the battery full. When the grid goes out, you still have a full battery, and it's going to run this power inverter plus my lights and this for an exceptional amount of time before I run out of power. I didn't get into solar for backing up my house at all. I actually got into doing solar because I watched a video where somebody had a horrible battery. They had a small solar panel and they were trying to claim they could run computers and air conditioners and things like that. I wanted to see whether you could or could not, and now I know you can't, not with what they were doing. The things you're not going to get for creature comforts from this setup, you're not running your stove or your dryer or your washing machine or your vacuum cleaner. You're not running your plug-in coffee maker or your toaster or your electric griddle. You're not going to use this for the production of heat. You're going to use it for the production of light. You can plumb a cord from your power inverter straight into your furnace. You're going to have to research how to do that for yourself. I don't want to be responsible. But if my power goes out and my house gets cold, I'm going to run an extension cord from here into my furnace. I'm going to disconnect the furnace from the house, and I'm still going to have my furnace run and give me heat. And this battery will last 2-3 weeks if its job is just to run my furnace. It'll probably last a little longer than 3 weeks with no recharge whatsoever. Because I have solar, it's going to recharge more in one day than it discharges in one day. So it'll always be full, and I'll just lose a little off the top during the night. The reason I have this is simply to back up my freezer. It cost me about $3,000 worth of meat to fill the freezer, and if all I had was this battery and that charge controller, I can actually plug it in, and my freezer only uses 1,250 kilowatts per year. There's 4,200 kilowatts of power, 4,200 kilowatts power in that battery. So it's going to run my freezer longer than I'm going to have need to run it. But because I do have solar and can regenerate, and I can, between my two solar panels, I can get about 3.5 to 4 kilowatts a day, so completely charge that battery during summertime. In the winter time, I'll get about 1 kilowatt per day. But because I can generate a kilowatt a day, I'm going to be just fine when it comes to using my power responsibly. I wouldn't go ahead and leave the computer on during the night. I would watch a movie and shut it down. All of my communications, which is going to be part of the next video, I can recharge the batteries, phones, tablets, whatever I want. So let's go outside and I'll show you some of the other solar panels I purchased that seemed like a good idea at the time and not anymore. And I'll show you the panels that I do use to connect to this. So what I wanted to do was run my cooler camping. My cooler has a 5 amp 12 volt draw, and I bought these panels here. These are made by Coleman, and they're rated for 40 watts per panel. They cost about $150 per panel. Sometimes 200. I've always gotten them on deal too for $150, if you want to call that a deal, because I was robbed. For a 40 watt panel, these are so inefficient, they only put out not quite 20 watts. You get about 18 watts out of them. So right now, with all 4 of these going together, when they were in full sunlight, I was only getting 3.5 amps between all 4 going into the battery. And that was running it through the MPPT charge controller. I would actually only get around 3 amps if I didn't. And then I bought the 12 volt, 20 amp hour deep cycle battery. That was my first battery I bought for experimenting. And of course I ran it down to zero enough times where it's garbage. I decided it didn't store enough, so I was going to try 6-volt batteries at 208 amp hours each. And I bought this 6-pack. At first I bought 2, and then I had bought, first I bought 4, then I bought 2 more. And that brought me up to 600 amps at 12 volts. Because they're lead acid, they have to be stored outside, not like the battery I showed you inside. And they do vent poisonous gas, and you can only use approximately 45% without taking the charge cycles out. These batteries here, as they sit, they're going to the recyclers quite soon, which is why I'm making the video today. This is my old battery box, but these batteries are only capacitors at this point. They don't actually hold a charge. So I had to get a new battery. I went with a LiPo4 in the basement, and shortly we'll talk about that. Here is my solar stand, and I've got 2 solar panels. Unfortunately, I didn't get a matching set. I bought the one with the black back first, and then I built this rack to hold 2. And then I bought this other one, which actually measures a few centimeters off, which drove me insane because this rack was built so tight, these panels were a friction fit. And because this one panel is a little bit bigger, I lost that friction fit. But this solar structure, the upper here and here, what controls the tilt, I can lay it flat or stand it straight up. And then these other ones here and here, if I take those down, I can control its angle to chase the sun, south or north or east or west. And it's just a simple teeter-totter. So, you know, only 2 solar panels, and I get about 38 watts in straight sunlight, and right about now I'm gonna get 38 volt amperage, 38 amperage in direct sunlight. And right about now I'm only gonna get about 18 or 19 maximum because it is winter. So I'll pause and we'll go back in. Before we go back in, I should probably add the reason these panels are here and the reason I keep them is this radio box for communication. I've done a video on it if you want to look at some of my earlier videos. This has the same stored power as your average Jackery or Blue Eddy. It has about 512 watts worth of power. All I use this for is high frequency radio and the amplifier. And I primarily charge it from these solar panels when I'm at home, and they, for what I need, they'll do enough. And when I'm mobile, portable, or out camping, I've got the EcoFlow folding solar panels that are 120 watts. I'll show you those in a moment. So this is my 120 watt eco-worthy solar panel, folding solar panel. This one solar panel, I believe I spent $150 or $180 or something like that off of Amazon. It came with that charge controller that I had showed earlier in the video when I was downstairs. And this one panel puts out more power than all 4 of those and costs about half as much. So that's why I don't recommend these panels at all. I just have them because I wasted my money, so keep them. This is what I use when I take my communication station portable. And between the 2 panels I have, given the charge controller I actually use and not the one that came with it, I can get 10 amps into the battery It's a 40 amp battery, so I can go from straight dead to fully charged in 4 hours and still have another 4 to 5 hours of sunlight in the summertime for running other power needs, such as the 12 volt cooler. I will fold this up and see you downstairs. So to try and keep this video under 30 minutes, I'll wrap it up. Creature Comforts is restoring normalcy, being able to power your heating unit, being able to power your fridge so you don't lose all of your groceries, being able to power your internet connection. My internet connection requires 12 volts and 3 amperes per hour. This battery will definitely get that going. And if you're a parent, you know the moment the internet goes out, your two kids start fighting immediately, so you want to get that going fast as you can. If I was starting over again, and from scratch with nothing but an internet connection, I would start by purchasing this battery. And the reason I would is the amount of power it holds. Again, 320 amps. It was the largest one I could find that wasn't going to cost thousands of dollars. It's about 4 kilowatts worth of power, or 4,200 watt hours. The moment you get it, you can plug it into your grid power while you have grid power to charge it up fully. And because this comes with it, you can just leave it plugged in and guarantee your battery is always full charge when the lights go out. I'm going to move this so that you can see who built it, because I can't remember. So again, this was an Amazon special. It cost me around $1,300 shipped to my door Canadian. A little under, it was about 12 something. And they work. Where this is superior over the lead acid, I'm actually going to get 320 amp hours. This battery will actually give me closer to 325. It has a minimum of 2,000 charge cycles. It's going to last 10 years before it drops down to 80%. And then it'll continue on at 80% for the next 10 or 15 years. So I'll basically be getting 280 amp hours instead of 320 amp hours. You can't go wrong. Buy the battery. You can plug it in. It does have a USB port, and I think it had 12 volt. I really can't remember because I didn't buy it for that purpose. I bought it because my my more expensive batteries became capacitors. So I would order this first. I'd recover from the financial beating that is going to give. And then I would buy the power inverter. Because if nothing else, you still have your fridge. You can still run your furnace. You can still run your internet. You can still have the odd light. And that is going to make a world of difference. And due to the capacity, it'll probably, if you're conservative with it, get you right through the 5 days and still have power left to spare. For 15 days, you're going to want to think about definitely adding the charge controller and then the panels. And again, that was about $285. $285. Each of my 265 watt solar panels were $285. A couple of bus bars for getting power in and out. And that's pretty much all you need to restore Creature Comforts for a limited time localized power disruption. This video's been almost 25 minutes, so if you're still with me, you're a trooper. I think I'm going to cut this video off now, and the next one is going to be on intelligence and communications, so that when you're left in the dark, you're not truly in the dark. Have a good one, and thank you for watching.